stop. Before you scroll past this video, I need you to hear something. There is a woman right now, somewhere in Lagos, somewhere in London, somewhere in Houston, sitting in a beautiful home, driving a fine car, wearing clothes that cost more than her mother earned in a month. And she is embarrassed by her mother. Not because her mother did anything wrong, not because her mother is a bad person, but because her mother still talks the way she talked in the village, still ties her wrapper the old way, still brings palm oil and yam when she visits, wrapped carefully in newspaper, carried for hours on a bus, because that is how she shows love. And the daughter, the one in the fine house, looks at those bags and feels something she would never say out loud. Shame. Now, before anyone in the comments comes for me, I am not here to judge, because this story is not really about one woman. It is about what happens to all of us when life gets better, when the accent softens, when the neighborhood changes, when the WhatsApp group shifts from family back home to colleagues and new friends who have never seen where you started. Something happens in that transition, something quiet, something dangerous. And most people don't even notice it happening until the day it costs them something they cannot get back. This is that story, and I promise you, by the time this video ends, you will either see yourself in it or you will see someone you know. Stay with me.
My name is Chinedu, and if you met my wife Amara today, on the street, at a dinner, scrolling past her on Instagram, you would think this woman had always lived well. She carries herself with a kind of ease that money gives people after enough time. The clothes are right. The posture is right. The English is the kind that makes people in certain rooms nod with approval. Smooth, confident, shaped by years of choosing it deliberately over everything else. She is beautiful in a way that turns heads without trying. But here is what you would not know about Amara if you just met her. She grew up with nothing exceptional. A modest home in Enugu. A father who worked too hard for too little. A mother who made every school fee feel like a miracle. She did not come from comfort. She built her way into it, slowly, determinedly, one sacrifice at a time. And I respect that about her. I always have. Because I know that story personally. I come from a village in Anambra, the kind of place that does not appear on any map that tourists consult. Red earth roads in the dry season, mud paths in the rainy season. A compound where everybody knew your business before you did. Chickens in the morning, the smell of firewood and palm soup every afternoon without exception. I grew up understanding very clearly that if I wanted something different, I would have to go and get it myself, because nobody was going to hand it to me. My mother made sure I understood that.
Not with speeches, not with motivational talks. She showed me by how she lived every single day before I was old enough to fully appreciate what I was watching. When Amara and I met, we were both just people in the city, trying to survive. I had a small import business, nothing impressive. Buying goods, selling to shops, counting profit at the end of the week, and hoping it was enough. Some weeks it was, some weeks it was not. But we built together. A small apartment, one car between us, a list at the market, and the discipline to stick to it. The particular dignity of two people who have decided to make something from very little. We were happy in that smallness. And then, slowly, things began to grow. The business expanded, contracts came. We moved to a better place, then a better one. The life I had imagined started arriving, piece by piece, year by year, until one morning we woke up and realized we were actually living it. But as the life improved, something else was shifting, something I did not catch early enough.
Now, here is where I need to pause and speak directly. Because this part of the story,
What I am about to describe is not unique to Nigeria. I have spoken to Nigerians in the UK who left Lagos or Abuja for London and Birmingham, and within a few years, something changed in how they spoke about home. The accent adjusted, the mannerisms adjusted, and suddenly, the village, the compound, the way their parents spoke, these things became something to manage rather than something to carry with pride. I have spoken to Nigerians in the United States, in Houston, in Atlanta, in Maryland, in the DMV, who built good lives in America, and somewhere in the building, started to look at their Nigerian roots, the way someone looks at an old photograph they don't want to put on the wall. Not because they are bad people, but because society rewards assimilation. Because the world tells you, sometimes loudly, sometimes in ways so subtle you don't notice, that the further you get from where you started, the more successful you must be. And so, some people run. Some people create distance between themselves and the village, between themselves and the parents who sacrificed, between themselves and the person they were, before the money and the postcode and the passport changed. Amara started running, and I did not stop her in time.
The changes were small at first, the kind of small that is easy to excuse. She became more selective about appearances, where we eat, who we were seen with, the events we attended, and, more pointedly, the events we declined. I did not see anything wrong with growing into a bigger life. When your circumstances change, your tastes change. That is not a crime. But then the village visits stopped. First, I'm too busy. Then the journey is too stressful, Chinedu. It is almost 5 hours. Then, with no explanation at all, you go, I'll stay. I pushed gently a few times. She deflected. I let it go. Because I told myself what we often tell ourselves in marriages when we don't want to face something difficult. She's just tired. She'll come around. Give it time. But time did not fix it. Time only gave it room to grow. And then the comments started. Small ones, quiet ones. The kind you are supposed to absorb without reacting. Your family members from the village call too much. Why does everything have to be such a ceremony? Do they have to stay so long? And I absorbed them every time. Because I am a man who prefers peace to conflict in his own home. But peace that is purchased with silence is not peace. It is just a delayed argument. Then my mother called.
Now, let me tell you about my mother, because she is the center of this entire story, and you need to understand who she is before I tell you what happened. Her name is Ngozi. She is small, short, narrow, with the kind of build that makes people underestimate her until they spend 5 minutes in her company. Her hands tell her story better than any words. Rough at the palms, thick at the knuckles. The hands of a woman who has spent more years in soil than in soft things. She never went to university. She barely finished secondary school. Not because she lacked the intelligence, but because the money ran out and she reached that wall young. She married my father. He died when I was 11. And from that day forward, everything, the children, the compound, the future, rested entirely on those 2 small hands. She farmed cassava, vegetables, palm fruits. Every day before the sun decided to show up, she was already at the farm. She came home in the afternoon, cooked, cleaned, managed the home, checked our schoolwork, and slept so she could do it again. She did not do this because she loved suffering. She did it because she understood something that many of us spend our whole lives learning. The sacrifice you make today is the foundation someone else builds on tomorrow. She was building my foundation. She just never said it in those words. When I told her I wanted to start a business in Lagos, she did not give me fear. She said, "What do you need?" 2 weeks later, she called me to the village. She had sold a portion of the family land, her own portion, land that had been in our family for 2 generations. Land that is not just land in a place like that. It is your grandmother's grandmother. It is identity in soil form. She pressed the money into my hands. "My son," she said, "go and build a life better than mine." No conditions, no repayment schedule, no list of expectations. Just a mother handing her son everything she had, wrapped in 7 words.
I built my business on those 7 words. And every time things got hard, and they did many times, I heard them again.
She called in October and said she wanted to visit. I said, "Mama, when have you ever been a problem?" She arrived 3 days later by morning bus, carrying 3 enormous bags. Yam wrapped in newspaper. A container of palm oil, so red and thick, it looked like something from another time. Fresh vegetables from the farm. Dried fish, ground pepper, uziza leaves, ogiri, achi, a small bottle of honey from a neighbor's bees, and at the bottom of one bag, wrapped in cloth, a small carved wooden figure she bought at the village market because she thought it might look nice in my sitting room. She had spent days preparing this, selecting, packaging, carrying. Every item was a decision made with someone else's comfort in mind. To my mother, those bags were love in physical form. Amara looked at those bags and I watched her face. The smile was there, correct, adequate. But behind it, just for a moment, just long enough for me to see, something else. A quiet wince, the faintest edge of irritation. The expression of a woman confronted with something she has decided is beneath the life she has built. She recovered quickly. She said the right things. She helped carry the bags inside. But that evening, she found me in the kitchen. She didn't need to bring all of that, she said. All of what? All those things. The yam, the oil, all of it. It's too local. It looks like... She stopped. It looks like what, Amara? She shook her head. I'm just saying, we have everything here. She didn't need to carry all that. I looked at my wife for a long moment. That is not why she brought it, I said. I know why. I don't think you do. And I walked away.
The next afternoon, Amara had friends visiting, colleagues from her office, polished, accomplished, very much at home in expensive spaces. They arrived with wine, they filled the living room with perfume and laughter. My mother heard the voices and came out to greet them, because that is what you do, because in the world she came from, you welcome people who come to your son's house. It is not something you decide, it is simply what you do. She came in wearing her traditional wrapper, navy blue and gold, neatly tied. Her head wrap knotted the way women from her village have always knotted it. She greeted them warmly. Her English was imperfect, and she didn't apologize for it. She smiled. She said they looked fine. She was genuine and real and completely herself. Then she returned to the guest room. The room went quiet for just a moment. And in that quiet, in that brief window, Amara leaned toward her friend and spoke in a voice she believed was low enough. Please, somebody should tell her not to behave like she is still in the village. I was standing in the corridor. I heard every word. And something broke inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, the quiet kind of breaking that a man carries in his chest for a long time after.
Here is what I need you to understand about that moment. And I am speaking now to every Nigerian watching this in Lagos, in London, in Houston, in Toronto, anywhere in the world. That sentence was not just disrespectful. It was ignorant in the most specific and painful way. Because the house Amara said those words in, the house she was performing her polished life for her colleagues in, was built by the business my mother's land paid for. The floor Amara stood on while she whispered those words existed because a woman in a village in Anambra sold her family's earth to give her son a chance. Amara did not know that fully, or she had known it once and forgotten it the way we forget things that are inconvenient to remember. And that is the real danger I want to talk about. Not just disrespect, forgetting. The dangerous, gradual, socially rewarded act of forgetting where your life began.
The truth did not arrive with drama. It never does in real life. It arrived with Uncle Celestine, my father's elder brother,
the family historian, the man who remembers every transaction going back 40 years and has no instinct whatsoever for reading a room before he speaks. He drove in the following evening. He ate enormously. He told long stories and laughed at them himself. And at the dinner table, with all of us sitting together, food between us, the easy warmth of family filling the room, he said something completely casually, the way you mention something you assume everyone already knows. "You know, Amara," he said, scooping more stew, "this house, everything here, it started from what your mother-in-law did. That woman sold family land, her own portion, to give Chinedu the capital to start his business." He shook his head with genuine admiration. "I told her not to do it. I said, 'Ngozi, that land is your security.' But she said, I still remember exactly. She said, 'If I don't believe in my son, who will?' And she sold it." He pointed at me. "That is your foundation. That woman right there." He pointed at my mother. Then he went back to eating. The truth did not arrive with drama. It never does in real life. It arrived with Uncle Celestine, my father's elder brother, the family historian, the man who remembers every transaction going back 40 years and has no instinct whatsoever for reading a room before he speaks. He drove in the following evening. He ate enormously. He told long stories and laughed at them himself. And at the dinner table, with all of us sitting together, food between us, the easy warmth of family filling the room, he said something completely casually, the way you mention something you assume everyone already knows. "You know, Amara," he said, scooping more stew, "this house, everything here, it started from what your mother-in-law did. That woman sold family land, her own portion, to give Chinedu the capital to start his business." He shook his head with genuine admiration. "I told her not to do it. I said, 'Ngozi, that land is your security.' But she said, I still remember exactly. She said, 'If I don't believe in my son, who will?' And she sold it." He pointed at me. "That is your foundation. That woman right there." He pointed at my mother. Then he went back to eating. I watched Amara. I watched the information arrive in her face in stages. The slight frown of someone hearing something new. Then the stillness of someone beginning to connect things. Then the slow turn of her head toward my mother. My mother was focused on her food. She had not looked up during the telling. She did not want to be thanked for it. Even now, even after all this time. She had done what she felt she needed to do. She had moved on. She did not wear her sacrifice like a medal. But Amara was staring at her. And I watched something shift in my wife's eyes. For the first time, truly, fully, for the first time, she was seeing the woman in front of her correctly. Not a village woman to be managed and hidden. The woman who built the floor she stood on. The woman who made the beautiful life possible. The woman she had whispered about just the afternoon before in her own house.
That night, Amara sat alone in the living room with a glass of water she wasn't drinking. I sat across from her. We were quiet for a while. Then she said, "Why didn't you tell me about the land, about what she did?" I said, "I mentioned it when we were younger, but I think neither of us treated it like the big thing it was. And after a while, I assumed you knew, or that it didn't need to keep being said." She was quiet. "I said something terrible yesterday," she said. "Yes." She heard me. "I know." Another long pause. "I didn't think about who she was," she said, and there was something raw in her voice that I recognized as real. "I just saw a woman from the village, and I was embarrassed in front of my friends, and that's," she shook her head at herself, "that's horrible." "It is," I said. I was not going to soften it. "I've been this way for a while," she said quietly. "Haven't I?" I did not answer immediately, because the honest answer was complicated. She had not been cruel in the deliberate way of someone who doesn't care. She had been thoughtless, and that is its own kind of failure. Thoughtlessness causes the same damage as cruelty. It just does it without noticing. You forgot, I said finally. The life got better, and you decided, maybe without realizing it, that better meant separate. That success meant distance. From the village, from the family, from where we started. I leaned forward. But Amara, where we came from is what gave us all of this. You cannot separate from it. You can pretend it isn't there, but you cannot separate from it. She did not argue. After a while, she got up and went to the guest room. I did not follow. Whatever passed between those two women that night was not mine to witness or manage. I heard voices through the wall. My mother's voice, low and steady. Amara's voice, smaller than usual. After perhaps 30 minutes, Amara came back. Her eyes were red, but she looked lighter. She forgave me, she said, before I even finished apologizing. She just pulled me and said, "My daughter." She paused. "How is she like that?" she asked. "After everything. How does she just do that?" "Because that is who she is," I said. It was right there to see the whole time. If you had been looking.
Amara has been back to the village twice. She plans the trips herself now. She packs carefully. She sits with the women of the compound and asks their names and learns their stories. She has been learning to cook ofe onugbu from memory, calling my mother to confirm measurements, my mother guiding her through the phone, patient and delighted. She has not erased herself. She is still Amara, ambitious, particular, very much a woman who knows what she wants. She has simply corrected something within herself, and the correction has made her better, more grounded, more real, more grateful. But I want to talk about something bigger than Amara's story now, because I told you at the beginning that this video is not really about one woman.
I want to speak to the person watching this in the UK. Maybe you came from Nigeria 10 years ago, maybe 20. You built a life there, a real one, a good one. You worked hard, you adapted, you made it work in a country that was not always easy to be in. And somewhere in that process, somewhere between the British accent you softened your Nigerian one with, and the colleagues who became your new social world, and the particular loneliness of being far from home that nobody talks about honestly, you started to feel complicated about where you came from. Not ashamed exactly, just complicated. The parents call and you love them, but sometimes you let it ring. The cousin is visiting and you feel a tension you can't fully explain. You post about Nigerian food on social media because it is trendy now, but you wouldn't be caught in certain spaces speaking Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa at full volume. I am not judging you, I am asking you to notice it. Because that distance, that barely there, socially acceptable, very understandable distance, has a cost. And the cost is usually paid by the people back home who never asked for it.
I want to speak to the person watching this in the United States. Houston, Atlanta, Maryland, New Jersey, Dallas. You know who you are. Maybe you came for school and stayed. Maybe you came for opportunity and found it. Maybe you were born there to parents who came before you, and Nigeria is something you know through jollof rice on Sundays and aunties visiting in the summer, and a homeland you've seen in photographs more than in person. There is a particular pressure in America to perform your success visibly. The car, the neighborhood, the schools your children attend, the crowd you run with. And sometimes the village, the compound, the parents who speak in proverbs and pack dried fish in their luggage does not fit the image. Not because you are a bad person, but because the world you are performing your success in does not know how to value what those things represent. So you manage them. You keep them in a separate room of your life, away from certain audiences. I am asking you, at what cost?
And to the person in Nigeria, in Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Enugu, who is doing exactly what Amara was doing right now in real time, I want you to hear this. The people back in the village are not your embarrassment. They are your evidence. Evidence that someone loved you enough to sacrifice things you will never fully know about. Evidence that your story started somewhere real, somewhere human, somewhere that had nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with survival and hope and love. The mother who brings palm oil is not embarrassing you. She is feeding you the way she has always fed you, with whatever she has, in whatever form she can carry it. The uncle who calls too much is not disturbing your peace. He is making sure you know you are still remembered, still claimed, still connected to something larger than your own individual success. The village is not your past. It is your foundation. And the building that is ashamed of its foundation is a building that is already beginning to fall. Let me leave you with something my mother said the morning she left. Amara was at the gate with her, holding her hands, crying in a way that was not unhappy. My mother looked at her, really looked at her, with those eyes that have seen everything and rushed to judge nothing. Then she said, "My daughter, never be ashamed of the place where your blessings began." That is the whole sermon. Everything else is just commentary.
Now, I want to hear from you. And I mean this, I genuinely want to read your responses. Because this story is not something I invented. Versions of this story are happening in homes right now, in Lagos and London and Houston and everywhere in between. And the only way we start to fix it is by talking about it honestly. So here is what I want you to do. In the comments, answer one of these questions. 1. Have you ever felt ashamed of where you came from? Not judging, just honest. 2. Do you know someone like Amara? Or have you been Amara at some point in your life? 3. What did your parents or grandparents sacrifice that you don't think you fully honored yet? I will be reading every single comment on this video. Not a manager, not an assistant. Me, personally. Because these conversations matter and they deserve real engagement. Now, if this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone, if it gave you something to think about, please share it. Not just because it helps the channel, but because there is someone in your life who needs to see this today. A friend who is drifting, a family member who has forgotten, someone who needs to hear that their roots are not their shame, they are their strength. Share it with them. And if you are new here, welcome. This channel is dedicated to exactly this kind of storytelling. Real stories, African stories, human stories, the ones that go deeper than the surface of success and ask the harder questions about who we are and where we come from and who we owe. Subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Because the next story is coming, and I promise you it will hit just as hard as this one. Until then, take care of the people who took care of you, before it is too late to show them you still know how. See you in the comments. The end.